Hello everyone, Brad Johnson here. In this video I'm going to be channeling Adronis, and Adronis is going to be talking about the Hybrid Children Initiative. We will elaborate on the idea of what you have termed as the Hybrid Children Initiative. Understand that the idea of the hybridization program is a part of what you would know as a repopulation protocol. It goes much deeper than what has been currently elaborated by many of your informants, channels, mediums, psychics, contactees, than what has been addressed as it relates to this topic. The idea of the hybridization program pertaining to the children was all part of an enactment based upon the energies of where you are going as waves of new volunteers coming upon your planet. It was intentional to allow the contracts on a soul level with many of the beings that would incarnate upon your planet as human, to engage in these forms of mutual exchanges of genetic stock, mutual exchanges of new children that would be produced through a hybrid degree where the mother, the father, and the beings that you would commonly know as Zetas or the Greys would constitute a relationship and bring these children into being. This all began in what you would know as your early 1950s. This was the beginning point to where the waves of volunteers began to descend upon the planet. And that the entire point of these hybrid races relating to the beings such as the Greys in regards to this hybrid children program were all part and parcel of allowing the early generations as it relates to the hybrid children to become brought into being and established throughout these particular forms of approximately 7 decades of your time, so that they themselves will become much more familiar with your collective consciousness. The idea of the appearance of the Zetans is indeed very popular throughout your culture. In fact, if many of you were to see the idea of an extraterrestrial or an alien in that particular way, many of you would envision the face of the beings that you would know as the Greys. So the Greys themselves have been, shall we say, embedded into your culture due to the idea of the significant increase of these hybridization programs that took place starting within your early 1950s. And so basically, just as there have been approximately 3 generations of human beings that have represented these volunteers of wanderers, of starseeds, that have come upon your planet, there have also been 3 generational aspects as it pertains to the hybrids themselves. But why did this particular program get approved? It got approved because, as we have stated in previous dialogues, the hybrid children, the hybrid race that you would understand as the Yahyel, will indeed be the very first race within this association that we are a part of to connect, to contact, and to work with you. They are immediate family. And the reason, again, why the Greys or the Zetans themselves are not involved in regards to the first contact principle is, 1, they may frighten many of you. Secondly, it is important in that sense that their entire role was simply to function together in that type of parentage, to basically function in helping to create an aspect of their progeny. and that their progeny, relating to the degree of the hybrid children, would be the ones that would make contact with you, because they share the human association. Even though their features may be somewhat Zetan in appearance, much in regards to their energies are very human-like, and that they are the immediate product in regards to the aspect of genetic implementation between the human genome and the Zetan genome, which again is just another similar humanoid genetic archetype existing in another dimensional planet Earth. And so, this particular experiment has involved itself since these particular approximate last 7 decades of your time, spanning in that way. And that the entire process involved having what you would know as a chosen female that has what you would know as a beacon imprint contained within their DNA. We would basically refer to this in that sense as a sequence pertaining to what is known as A prime. And that A prime represents this coded DNA sequence that certain select souls who are incarnated upon your planet or have been incarnated upon your planet have imprinted itself within their own DNA. A prime represents this particular form of, shall we say, note, or this beacon or trigger point contained within DNA. It is a beacon that is truly unidentifiable throughout much of your common technologies. It is actually imprinted in the DNA itself. It is all part, in that sense, of a message in a bottle in that way, as it relates to the genetic encoding of the mothers that will volunteer themselves for this particular experiment. If we were to give an approximate statistic between the years of your 1950s to your current day of the amount of population upon your planet that did volunteer for this, shall we say, hybrid children program, we would estimate that it would be between 20 to 25% of your world's population. So again, between that span of the near 7 decades. And that these women themselves have volunteered themselves. Well, Adronis, what about the men? Have the men contributed their own genetic stock to this? Yes, but their association in that sense is somewhat different. It is not in that sense as vivid as the females in that sense of your planet that have gone through these particular forms of associations relating to hybridization implementation. What is the process to allowing a hybrid child come together? Firstly, it is important to understand that those who have the A prime signature contained within their own DNA are in that sense integrated through the means of certain forms of surveying, and that this surveying firstly represents a precursor to ensure that the female is healthy, that there are no particular forms of contaminations within their bloodstream or any other particular forms of abnormalities pertaining to that of their genetic structure, or again, system resources contained within their bodily matrix. Any particular degree to where these feelings of illnesses, ailments, abnormalities are taking place. They would basically be receiving pre-visits. What these pre-visits entail are beings such as the Greys that would come into a bedroom, or actually in that sense working together with a female, in that sense of example, on board a ship, where it would appear as a dream state. They would therefore begin to work together with certain forms of technology to liberate the feelings of abnormalities, such as the idea in that sense is fevers or illnesses, or again other particular forms of genetic impurities. These would therefore be relinquished. They are not, however, permanently relinquished. They are only relinquished up until the point to where the pre-aspect of gestation would take place. So the whole idea in that sense is that these forms of abnormalities, these ailments, would be temporarily in a state of relief, which means that the conduit themselves would not have any particular forms of impurities during this point of intended gestation. And so, as those pre-scans took place, many may have felt that they felt somewhat better during the middle of the night, that they could not explain what was happening here. But this was all part within the span that would then lead into induced gestation. So therefore, in the nights that would follow, would represent the idea to where the A prime genetic of the symbiote in question would therefore again be taken on board the spacecraft, their physical body. When you are working together with the hybrid programs, it is the idea that your physical body is actually taken from the Earth and placed on board one of the spacecraft. Upon these particular forms of spacecraft would be a laboratory. A laboratory that you would often find in that sense is a cold metal table. And again, many other different forms of instruments that may not be quite identifiable or may vary depending upon the ages to where this has taken place. Basically, the whole idea in that sense is that there is a cocoon, a time cocoon, that is actually placed around the female, basically what you could also refer to as a dimensional blister. And that this dimensional blister contained around the female would basically be able to accelerate time as you understand it, after the aspect of gestation from the synthesized semen would actually take place. So therefore, insemination of gestation would be natural in that way, through the idea of genetic synthesizing. Through the genetic synthesizing itself, the woman would basically experience 9 months of pregnancy upon the state of gestation conception within a matter of minutes. And within a matter of minutes, the baby, in that way, is naturally delivered. Let's say that again. It is not going through any type of cesarean. It is naturally delivered into the world. After the baby itself has been delivered, the mother again will be tended to, ensuring that she too again is healthy, and basically having what you would know as a mind wipe. Basically having the memory of her experience relating to this hybridization program contribution wiped from her memory. They would then cycle her back in time and place her back into the bed, or again into the area to which she was taken. Therefore having no conscientious memory as pertaining to what took place. However, the idea of quote-unquote memory wiping or mind wiping can in that sense have setbacks for certain individuals. Certain individuals may actually start to have certain levels of high recall as it pertains to the idea of their own, shall we say, memory karmic replacement. So it is basically looking into the idea that through memory wiping comes the possibility that the dreams themselves that they see are in that sense actually showing them what has taken place, because there is an importance in regards to the idea of some form of resemblance of remembrance that would serve them later on in life. So, for example, many of you may not experience the idea of memories relating to when you were a teenager contributing your own, shall we say, child to that of the hybridization program. Some of you may experience dreams that have some recollection of this weeks, months, or even years later, because in that sense of what you would know as rebound. And basically in that sense, it is an importance for you to realize this because much of your energies will be working alongside the hybrids. That is why the position of rebound karmically comes back for you to therefore have some sites of resemblance and remembrance as it pertains to these events. So again, it is all being brought forward to specific individuals that have this remembrance. Now, understand that the Yahyel themselves currently comprise of approximately from what you would know as 500 million to 650 million Yahyel entities. That is primarily their current state of population. There are again other particular forms of population that are growing. Well, Adronis, that may not equal out to about 20 to 25% of the population. Yes, we realize that. And the reason, again, why we are saying this is because many of the other particular forms of hybridization programs have not always been a success. Also, other particular forms of hybridization programs are not, shall we say, always contributing to the population of the Yahyel, but to other particular means of genetic extraction. So again, this is more so in the idea of a percentage within a percentage that allows approximately 650 million of the idea of the Yahyel that currently represent this race that is, again, alive and well and working together with you at this particular time. Again, as we have stated, this is the approximate ratio between your 1950s and also in that sense of your 2016 year in regards to that approximation. Therefore, the idea of your population rates expand and contract and of course grow much further within the decades ahead. So the idea of the ratio in that sense is, shall we say, somewhat variable. But that is basically representing the approximation in regards to, shall we say, the approximate total of populations existing within the 1950s to 2016. So you basically have, in that sense, quite a large number gap in that center. But as we stated, all particular females, for example, that are working together in this way, not all are in relationship to the idea of the Yahyel hybridization program, but different hybridization programs that relate to, shall we say, other particular orientations of affairs. Again, not related to this particular aspect of the A prime genetic as it relates to the Yahyel integration. Now, what happens to the children after they are born? When the baby is born, they are not going through any particular form of growth acceleration. They, in that sense, grow in their own natural means. But because the aspect of time is somewhat different in regards to that of what you would understand as Earth, you would understand that their acceleration is somewhat quicker pertaining to that. So they are not functioning in what you would know as a 24/7, 365-day-a-year, shall we say, environment. Their environment in that sense is somewhat more of a little bit degree of a quickening in that way. So basically you could understand that their primary life ages has somewhat of a higher acceleration. Again, not functioning together in your orbits of days. Because many of them can leave your star system and go into different planets, go to different realms or different realities. And again, therefore, the conjunction of the time ratio all is based upon the areas to which they dwell. So we have no form of accurate calculation in regards to the state of acceleration. It all varies in regards to the areas of children that are, again, going to different forms of star systems. Because many of these children are being raised in galactic society, which means that they are mingling together with other races. They are growing familiar with other particular forms of civilizations to which they will work with in the forms of trade and unity and community. So, the whole idea of the Yahyel civilization, for example, had a world chosen for them. This world, in that sense, was indeed integrated by the Greys. It was what you would understand in the best way of saying, a copy of Earth. What you would understand in that sense, in an amusing way, a Xeroxed copy of planet Earth. Which means that it is a world, shall we say, fetched from another dimension. Another dimension to where it basically entered its second density domain of life. And that the idea of its prime time, in that way, as it pertains to third and fourth density life, integrated together with the Yahyel. This, therefore, became the home. So one was selected by them in that sense. And again, we would refer to this world as what you would know as Yahyel Prime. Its distance would be somewhere in the degree close to the area that you would know as Centauri, or Alpha Centauri. Not exactly within that star system, but in the idea of its proximity. The star, in that sense, currently has no human name that we can reference, but you can simply refer to this as Yah. Y-A-H. So again, the children would not only be taken to the Yah star system, not only be brought forward upon the Yahyel prime planet, but many of them in that sense would indeed be explorers, because it is not, shall we say, in an amusing way, shoved down their throats that they must be something that they know they are not. Therefore, at a very early age, no more earlier than what you would know as 3 years of age, the children are able to consciously choose their path of what they feel they would like to become. Some actually decide to remain on board spacecraft and orbit your planet as they attempt to make more contact with their parents, often through the means of dream planes or, again, meditation experiences. Others will actually venture into other areas of the planets where they are becoming, shall we say, more mentored in regards to becoming civilization delegates. Others will actually come aboard other particular starships, or may in that sense go upon other planets and learn to, shall we say, grow food, learn to be agricultural, learn to actually develop sciences within their knowing, being able to work upon these planets in that sense in unification. So, therefore, the children in that way, depending upon their archetype, depending upon their genetics, do not always have to remain around the earth waiting for their parents to wake up. Some of them will actually go to different planets for a amount of time, or again, all based upon their states of discretion. But those that remain already realize that at some particular point they will make contact with their parents. We are referring to both the father and the mother in that particular way. Now again, the whole idea is that the father and the mother may not be fully aware of what they have produced together through the idea of hybrids, because the whole idea in that sense is that it is not the idea of identical partnership that is allowing the hybridization program to be brought into effect here, to be brought into fruition. The whole idea is that the father may exist in one side of the world, the mother existing on another side of the world. Both are oblivious to each other's presence. Yet their genetics will be integrated together as components, depending upon the necessity in regards to the strands that require genetic information and completion together, to be synthesized together with Zetan synthesized degrees. Now, Zetans themselves are incapable of developing semen themselves. They simply have no forms of reproductive organs. So the fathers, in that sense, is heavily genetically reoriented through the idea, again, of this form of genetic implementation from the Greys themselves. So much in regards to their own genetic stock is heavily encoded within much of these, shall we say, prime aspects of the semen itself, and also integrated in regards to certain forms of encoded information as it pertains to the embryo. So again, it can be a little bit complicated in that way. But again, percentages vary in regards to the increase or decrease pertaining to human contributed stock based upon the, shall we say, state in question for gestation. A great deal of scientific data is done in order for the life itself to come together. Now, the whole idea really is that the Greys, the Zetans themselves, originally attempted to clone themselves in that way of feeling that soul itself can bond. They basically ceased this particular form of operation, at least certain factions did, when they realized that their clones were not actually bonding with souls, and that the only way to preserve their race was to work together in this form of human participation. This would be the only way that their hybrid children would actually be brought into life. So their attempts at genetic cloning in that sense was not successful in bonding soul. The whole idea of why this was important is because this was their road back to the Creator. To basically have their own children, their own progeny in that particular way, so that when they themselves decided to retire from the physical body, they would then again have the opportunity to, shall we say, bond themselves together with the possibility of incarnation of their children. However, this all varied in regards to the idea of karmic conflict. So again, it gets a little bit more complicated. The whole idea in that sense is that much of the Zetans themselves have seen themselves more so in a cybernetic degree, seeing themselves more so in the idea of a machine mentality than the idea of their own, shall we say, substance pertaining to life. And so this is basically their own karmic challenges. They chose a road of technology. Because they chose a road of technology, they have realized what technology has done to their culture. It has basically degraded their degree to reproduce. It has actually degraded their degree to live upon a natural world. And much in regards to how their planet, shall we say, met its end, was through the idea of a great cataclysm. The idea in that sense where the planet itself's atmosphere was completely burned off, and that they had to evacuate the planet because it was becoming uninhabitable. The oxygen level of the planet was so highly polluted that they would actually suffocate if they remained there. And so they crisscrossed to different dimensions and came across the dimension again through here, upon this planet Earth, in this form of theme. But again, this was contractually available to them, so that they could therefore produce the hybrid children, and therefore the hybrid children, many of them, would become liaisons, ambassadors, mentors, and teachers to many of you when the timing is right. And so this is primarily what is happening. So the children themselves are educated in ways you cannot even imagine. They are not again dictated to feeling that they need to follow some sort of genetic aspect of, shall we say, modern society program. That does not exist in their reality. They are completely free to choose whatever they wish to, envelop themselves in, follow their own degrees of excitement with, based upon, shall we say, where they feel they fit energetically. So this is basically what the hybrid children are doing. Many of them are painters, many of them are artists, many of them are cooks, many of them are dancers, many of them are spiritual teachers, many of them are scientists, many of them are engineers, many of them in that sense are technologically adept, many of them are spiritually adept. There is all forms of ranges as it pertains to the hybrid children. They are again just as unique as each and every single one of you. And they basically possess what much of their own Zetan parentage do not: the ability of emotion. And this is what sets many of them apart. In fact, you would discover that many of the Yahyel no longer really associate with the Zetans anymore. Because the whole idea in that sense is that the Zetans who have, shall we say, through their remnancy, shared their particular genetic stock with the race, they therefore decided exactly that whatever their children decided to do, they would respect that. And because the Greys, the Zetans themselves, followed much more of a high technological path and were basically enslaved voluntarily, many of the children realized what they had selected and chose not to be part of that reality. So you would discover that much of the Yahyel are not in any way associated with the Zetans at all. They have decided to leave because their paths are very, very different from what their quote-unquote parents have chosen. Many of them, as we've stated, a great deal of them, have wanted to remain around Earth, to function on board spacecraft, yes, to even walk around your planet incognito. Many different hybrid children have done this. They have actually been able to walk around your world incognito and being able to get a feeling of humanity just by watching them. There are also other opportunities where they can simply watch you remotely from their spacecraft, or tune into your consciousness as well too, as they represent this beautiful seed of yourselves. And so the time is approaching to when the hybrids will become much more apparent to you, where they will actually start to make themselves more a part of your life. As your culture progresses, as it begins to accept more, collectively, of the extraterrestrial presence, the hybrids themselves will be very, very, very close to working together with you in that orientation. Now, many of you are already working together with your hybrid children. Many of you already have a very strong conscious connection with your hybrid children. And the whole reason for that in that sense is because you are getting ready to function together as a co-ambassador with them. And realizing this is my hybrid child. I have helped to bring him or her into the world. And we will always bring that love together as a team, as a cooperative, as a loving family. and we will work together. And there are those of you in that sense who are just starting to discover that perhaps many years ago you participated in the hybridization program. So as we've stated, between the 1950s up to 2016, approximately 20 to 25% of the variable of that population during those times were volunteers utilizing the A prime codex within your genetics to allow this to take place, to allow this to happen. So again, they have been procreated as part of the repopulation protocol, to function as ambassadors, to have somewhat of a familiar face, to being able to work together very diligently with humanity. They understand you almost to the point where you, in that sense, are really not understanding yourself as much as they do. They are very aware of much of the societal barriers that you have, but they are also, in that sense, quite surprised that you have been playing with those modern society barriers for as long as you have. It is quite surprising because they say they truly see a greatness in you. And through that particular greatness, this is all the more reason why they wish to work together with you. Again, some of the Yahyel civilization are working in different ways. Some of the children are going into different areas and are deciding not to communicate with human beings at this particular time. But as we would say, the majority are. And so they are therefore watching you from above. They are watching you upon the surface. They are working with you from within. And so your association with those children are all part and parcel of you functioning in ambassadorial relations between your children and between the coexistence of two different races that all share the same genetics in that form of equality. We thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius. Thank you again. Farewell for this timing, and we now return to the conduit. We will speak to you again, as now is forever, and all is one. Goodbye for now. All right, great. Oh, thank you guys for tuning in. That was quite a wild video. So I will go ahead and wrap this up. So feel free to check out realitywhisperer.com for sessions, courses, free media, and of course a lot more. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll speak to you again in another perspective of the now. Take care. Namaste, and may it be well with you. Goodbye.